Welcome. This is Jason here, and I wanted to show you how to do the Disney uh, principle of anticipation. Of course, I'm going to show you how to animate. So anticipation, the idea behind anticipation is kind of like, if a pitcher is going to pitch a ball, they're going to have a windup. If you are going to try to hit that ball, you would do a windup or a backswing before you're about to hit it with the baseball bat. So anytime there's an action that happens before the real action, we should say. So let's take an example of something I just recently did, and you pay attention to the both the cube and the cone, but the cone is the main action here. So I'm going to push play, and you can see the cone winding up and then coming to the end. Oh, and you can see I went off frame there. So we're going to watch that again. We go back, he winds up, or she winds up, and then comes to the end there. But I'd also like you to pay attention to the cube. The cube also has an anticipation. It's right there. See the cube, how it winds back to look at what is he going to do. And then as the cone comes forward, he or she comes forward, or they come forward, and then the cone comes to a rest. But notice the cone doesn't just come to a rest, but it kind of bobbles at the end there too. Kind of an action-reaction thing. So the anticipation part is this. The wind-up, the look, and then the rest of it is the real action that we're trying to focus in on. So I'm creating that anticipation move. So I'm going to get started by going to a new scene. You should be opening up your 3D Shapes template or something similar to that. We're not going to save it. All right, and we should be having something that looks like this. But just so we don't save it as 3D Shapes template, I'd like you to go in and do a save as, save scene as. I've already created a file name. I called it anticipation video, but you could just call it anticipation. And so, yeah, I want to replace the old one. All right, so here we are at my anticipation scene. For me, I'm not going to use the cylinder, and I'm not going to use the sphere at all. I'm not going to delete them. I'm just going to hide them. So I push H, I select it, and I push H. And then even the cube for right now, because I want to work exclusively on the cone for a while, I'm going to also push H on that. All right. I'm going to zoom in on that. If you don't know the trick to that, by the way, what I just did, that was selecting the object and hitting F. F brings you right to your object. And what I want to do now is define the real movement. The one that I really care about is from on the x-axis and the negative to the x-axis and the positive right here. So I'm going to select that entire object. By the way, if you're having trouble selecting an object, right click, hold down, and you can see you have all these different options. And you want to go to object mode. So it should be green when you select that. All right. And so I then am going to take a look or put it into the transform section. I want to open up my box here so I could take a look at what my translate. And you can see where my cone is right now. It's in a bunch of weird numbers. And you know what I think I'm going to do right now? We are going to freeze our transformations, all right? Set them all to 0. I'm going to save this, because this is going to make things a lot easier later. All right, so I froze my transformation to turn my translates to 0. So now this is the 0 point now, from now on. So anytime I go back to 0, it just goes back, okay? So I'm going to key this. I'm going to make sure that my automatic key button is pushed here, all right? Right there. The auto keyframe toggle is what they like to call it. I am also going to set this frame to 0. I'm going to set that one for, 240. 240. If I go too fast, just stop and rewind or pause or whatever. All right, so now I set the frame at 0, all right, and I'm going to tell it to keyframe this by pushing S. Oops. Wrong place. I'm going to push S. No. All right, let's do this. Translate Y. key selected. All right. And so I right click there and I can translate. That's another way of doing it. I don't know why I wasn't doing the other S, but I'll figure it out. All right. And all right. Now I'm going to go to the end of my frame. Let's say I want to end this at like 200. All right, because there's some things I want it to do at the end too. And I'm just going to take that, I'm going to drag it to the point where I would like it to end. All right, so 1 to 200. There we go. So if I push play, that is really slow, isn't it? So I'm definitely going to be speeding that up. And one way I could do that is I head over to my graph editor. If you haven't looked at your graph editor, you can, I'll turn it off and then we'll look at it again under Windows, Animation Editors, Graph Editor. And I turn that graph editor on. And you can see here on my y-axis is the amount of time that has taken place, and on the x-axis is the amount of frames that we have. All right, so you can see from 0 to 200 is how my cone takes off. I don't want it to start at 0. I actually want it to start back over here. I'm just making an estimate. You can see there it just turned like 42. And I'm going to bring it up this way too. So now it'll travel that space in a lot shorter distance. You can see that translated down here. If you're really picky about your numbers, you know, you could come in here and delete this and then put a different number in, or you could just mess around with your dimensions here. Like I could try to get it close to 40. There. All right. So now when I push play, it doesn't go yet, and then it takes off. That is still not fast enough for my liking, though. I'm not going to get too picky here, but I'm going to bring that sucker way over there. All right, so now takes off. Boom. All right, that's a little bit better. Okay, so now let's save. All right, you're going to get used to saving a lot, because if you don't save, you're going to lose a lot of your information. So here I have that. So now what I want to do is I want to create this anticipation idea that it's winding up. So I'm going to switch over to vertex, and you can see that little dot right there on the end. And I'm also going to switch to my view. If you look at my view pane here, and I'm going to switch, I'm going to look right dead on from the front Z axis. And so I have here, you can see where I start moving at around 40. So I know that it has to take off at 40. But before it takes off, I'm going to want it to, I pushed S, and that keyed it at nothing. And now I'm going to have it wind up. I pushed F again, by the way. I'm going to have it wind up, let's say on the 8th frame. Why not? All right. And it stretches back. Let's say I get back about that far. All right. So now, as I zoom through, there it goes there. And I like this little like stretchy feel, like maybe there's this kind of elasticity to the object. So it stretches a little bit, and then it stretches back more. And then it stretches back again. By the way, these are keying because I've got this highlighted in red, auto keyframe toggle. If it's not keying for you right away, that is the reason. So it stretches back, and then I'm going to do one last stretch back. Ugh. All right, so now as I go through, it goes, and it stretches all the way back. And then it's going to push forward just before it gets to the end. So I'm going to zero that. So I hit S, so it's the same thing. And then I'm going to zoom it forward. All right. So now you got stretch, 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 boom. Stretch, 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 boom. All right. If I were to watch that in full view, remember this is not from 3D perspective, but so we watch it. And then he takes off. That's a really slow takeoff, and it's driving me crazy, but I'll fix that later. All right. So we have that. But now, just to give it a little bit more energy to this whole action, I'm going to do more um, than just pull back at the head. I'm going to also pull back at the front here, as if there are legs at the front here. So I'm going to select this whole portion here, right? And I'm going to set 0 when I select those right here. And as it lifts up, you can see it lifting right there. I'm going to lift that up, and I'm then going to rotate a little bit. Hopefully you've learned to rotate, right? So, all right, and it leans back, and then maybe it leans back some more. So I'm going to 0 that there, S, and I lean it back some more, and now I lift it up, and I rotate there, and I'm going to 0 it again. By the way, when I say 0, it just basically means when it's winding back, see, like it's winding back forward, like from that elasticity thing. I just don't want it to move anymore while it's winding back. So then it pulls back one more time for that big pull. And for that big pull, I'm going to really crank that up there. And I'm going to rotate that. So now we have, and then it takes off. But look it stays put. So that makes things tricky. So now what I need to do is when I'm in this position and it's pulling forward, I need to slam that back down. And this can be tricky. All right. So what I want to do let's see if this will take care of it. I'm bringing it down. Bringing it down. See? So this might take some finagling. Let's see. So I go to my main view here. I'm going to look at my perspective here, so then I can bring it around and see what is actually happening. All right. So there's a part here that needs to come forward, it looks to me. And there's also a part, oh, there it is. I twist down that part, right? And then bring down that part, twist it down again, there. And it's just, this is, if you're not as precise as I am, this is where you can pay for it. But that's actually not too bad now. So here's my action. It's going back, back, back. Oh, and then it takes off. All right, cool. All right, that looks good. It takes off, and then when it lands at the end, I want it to wiggle back and forth, but I don't like how fast it's moving. I need it to move a little bit faster. So I'm going to go back to the object mode and go look at that translate. I knew that it was going to be too slow to begin with, but now I'm sure of it. And now you can see that I reduced the amount of time again. And now let's look. Zoom. All right. Even more. Even more. Let's see. All right. And it winds up. Zoom. Oh, I like that. I like that a lot. All right. So at the end, when the cone makes it to the end, there's going to be this shock that happens. And the first thing that'll happen is that when it gets there, the cone will snap back at attention. All right, so it comes into the screen and pulls up. Go to vertices. I look at that thing, right? And here's the important thing. If I don't set this at 0 just before it pulls up, I'll show you what happens. All right, just as an example, let's say I pull that back up, right? Watch what happens. It comes forward, but then it then it like starts winding back before it even stops. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that's not a good thing. All right, but I'm gonna not have that happen. All right. So what I'm gonna have it do is I'm gonna have it hit 0 here. So hit S again, and then right as it hits there, I want it to be straight back. So now it goes zoom and then back. All right, but that's not good enough for me. We need some more physics going on here. So not only is it going to come back, but it's going to give me a wobble. It's going to wobble, and then if I want to look at this closer, by the way, I'm going to hit 120 on my timeline because it looks like I'm not going to last 200. All right, so I give it a little wobble. I give it another wobble here forward. I give it another wobble here back, and I give it another wobble to the center or estimating the center. Let's see what that looks like. So I go, boom, there we go. That looks good. And you can see over here on the right in the graph editor, it reproduced that. And I could mess around with that wobble all day and make it do some, interesting physics and stuff. But I'm more into what, feels good for the character, not precision. You can see that these are not exact. But if you're into that, there are definitely ways that you could be typing in very specific numbers on your box, your translations. All right, so that is all of the anticipation. Good. Now I'm going to put back, I'm going to save. Save, always save. All right. I'm going to go back and I'm going to select my cube. I'm going to unhide it by pushing H. And my cube is going to be watching the action. Not going to be too difficult, not as difficult as the cone was here. And so the cube, in watching the action, he's just going to spin. And let's imagine that the cube's face is right in the front here. Okay? So in order to look at the cylinder, or not the cylinder, the cone, he would have to turn, they would have to turn around all the way to look at the cone. So I'm going to set 0 here. You're going to see it's winding up, right? And so it takes all that time. All right. So we're going to go here, set that to 0. It's winding up. And I'm going to use that to go there. And you can see it automatically keyframed it, right? So it's winding up, like, what are you doing? And then it watches it take off. So as it watches it take off, I got to make sure I set another 0 here because I don't want it to start spinning until a little bit later, and it watches it go down the field. So here we go. What are you doing? Oh, yes. Okay. So let's watch it all in sequence. What's going on? There. Okay. And that was the second part. The anticipation is the audience watching what's going on with the person or the thing doing the acting. So that's the anticipation of the cube. All right, I hope you got down the principle of anticipation, but this was fun, and we'll pick it up again later for another class session. All right, bye.